paint sheet.
The blue page.
She come in here at 3:30 and I said, you know, I can't make it. I was telling my mother, oh, I
Yeah. Well, both of us learned a lot.
not here. No, I meant over there. She was involved. I go back over there and I said, I don't know. I don't see my mother. Actually, Mrs. Beach last night and she said she went over there, like I said out here.
And I was,
There was no meeting.
The flag has been bad.
I would have her do that. Oh, yes, oh, yes, no problem.
I have to wait till it's and then with the building house.
Oh dear.
Announcements first.
We have a visitor from Stockton.
And she's up here for a week now visiting, and is thinking of moving up here. And
So let me-
Try not to scare her off.
And we have a new member from Taos, New Mexico. Potential member. Don't let him get out without knowing him. From Taos, New
Pretty aggressive
Mexico.
with your membership campaign. It's good to see. Nice to be here, folks.
We have an open door policy, but it's locked on your way out.
Okay.
Well, we are scheduled to have two artists today. Carter Swart was going to do a book signing, but the book got lost in the mail or something like that. It's one of these publisher mess-ups. So he does not have the book, but he does have a sign-up list at the front desk. You can sign up for his new mystery novel, sixth in the series, is that right? Of the, what's his name?
Lou Corso.
Lou Corso.
My hero.
So if you want to sign up for a book, he'll sign it if and when he ever gets them. And it'll be down at the gallery for you to pick up. Is anything else on that, Carter?
No, the book was released Monday, so it'll be around shortly, but there's usually a week or two before they get them distributed. So I suspect they'll be in a few days, and if you would like one, I offered them at a discounted price, and you'll just write your name in, put your phone number down. When the books come in, I'll sign them to you and call you and let you know they're at the gallery, and I'll drop them all off at the gallery.
And what's the name of the new book?
It's Lethal Purpose.
Lethal Purpose 1.
Thank you.
Okay, I see Bonnie brought her paintbrushes for her pastels, which shocked the heck out of me when I saw that today. Anyway, she's one of our more interesting artists, so I will just turn it over to Bonnie and let her amaze and astound you.
Well, I've done pastels since I was probably 10 years old, and I really like them because they're easy. It's not like a chess game like watercolor. It's as easy as using a crayon, and they can be very bold or very soft or both, and you can get bold colors with them, and if you want them. Anyway, there are two different kinds represented here. One is the old type, the classic type on Hansen paper. How embarrassing, I have to look hard at this one to see which it is. Okay, and there's one more, this one, which is, it really lends itself to drawing. And it's so simple. subject, and you got the sticks, and you rub them on. And that's 1 or 2 steps, however you count them. I managed to find a way to do it more complicated. I added 3 more steps. But I'll tell you how I came to the painting them with a brush in a minute. But I wanted to show you, here is a pastel journal.
With oil.
And it shows pastels, paintings that are in museums, like the J. Paul Getty, for instance, this one here. And they were done in the 1700s.
Who did that one under your 2 right fingers?
Friederike von, it's really long. Von Reed Olathone, or no, that's the subject. The other is, the artist is Jean Etienne Lyotard. Somebody's French could help me with that pronunciation.
Etienne?
Yeah.
And then leotard.
Okay. Leotard. Anyway, we have a Degas here and a Toulouse-Lautrec here. And so these paintings are 100 and 200 years old or more. And so they've been around for a long time. And about 25 years ago, Leslie B. DeMille used to have a show on television where he would sit, called Portraits in Pastel. And he would sit with a model and do the painting from start to finish in a 30-minute show. And he put out a book with some of the paintings in it. This is that artist, maybe some of you recognize. Anderson, he used to paint on television. This one is done on Canson paper in the classic way. Sorry. And a lot of his are done on velour also. To give you something good to look at here.
Rhonda, could you explain what the classic way is?
Like Degas, just drawing with the pastel sticks on paper. Although some of the old classic artists used gouache also.
Gouache with pastel?
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
It's an opaque watercolor, and it's used a lot in illustration. I'm looking at Goretta because she knows these things better than I do, I would think. Who has any
Oh,
background in commercial art?
You can say anything you want, we'll believe you.
About 30 years ago, I bought this $2 book and was looking for help for doing horse portraits, because I was doing a lot of horse portraits in those days. And much to my thrill and surprise, one of his examples was my very favorite racehorse of all times,
Which is?
Native Diver.
Oh.
That's going back to the early 1960s, middle
And the good
60s.
news is that our little local Ben Franklin has that same book.
Do they?
I'll bet
Well,
it is
I need a new
$2.
one.
The price is probably higher.
This is by Donald Schwartz, and he's
Any
one of,
relation?
no, it's Schwartz, but he's one of the top horse painters in the nation. And it was so kind of him and generous of him all that time ago to share his methods. And in this book, it's the only book on the subject I've ever seen that really helped. And you, let's see. He shows you step by step, well, practically. I mean, you can pick it up, you can see how he's managing to do it. An interesting thing, though, is the painting on the cover, this is oil, this is not pastel. And there are some other oils in here. And for my own taste, I like the pastels much better than the oil. And then the most, this is an oil that looks like John Henry does. It's, he does the big classic oils. But these pastel portraits have an intimacy about them, also, you notice he made this nice little step-by-step of eyes. And this has been the most help to me of anyone for doing an eye. So the book is worth its weight in gold as far as I'm concerned.
That's not the book Ben Franklin has.
I'm afraid.
It has some of the things, but it's just not that complete.
Yeah, well, this is really, oh, and this, I thought the way he did this gray was just wonderful. So this is how I got the idea to work on velour. I'd never heard of it before. I was doing a lot of portraits. So when you work on velour, as these are here, obviously you start with the flat of a stick, and you have to kind of shave it down, smooth it out on sandpaper, and start blocking in your large areas. This is the wrong color, of course. I'm not concerned about that. One thing about it, you can make a lot of corrections. So in the process, though, you wind up with pools of pigment. And by the way, pastels are getting to pretty expensive per stick now. I know I've seen some as much as $4. Does somebody know? For some, the super soft ones especially.
Are you using soft?
I'm using Rembrandt. And Rembrandt is great, but every now and then there's a little grain of sand or something in it, and you're going across the paper and it scores the paper. And of course, you're careful not to let that happen, and I kind of scratch it off with my fingernail, but it's kind of, you know. And then certain colors are not as soft as others. You find some's always soft, and some of the interesting reds and different colors are very hard. So the softest pastel made, I believe, are these Schminkies. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. They're German, I believe. And wow, the difference is incredible. But these are the ones that are probably at least $4 a stick. So I'm very stingy, but I wouldn't want to do the whole piece in that anyway. In a way, they're almost like oil pastel in their brilliance. So they're great for just the final touch, anything you want to really bring out. And I did bring some catalogs from Dakota Arts. They sell everything having to do with pastel, so that's good reference material if anybody's interested.
If you were to buy not necessarily that big of a supply, but is it $4 if you would just order certain colors, but if you were to order the, you know, I don't want to use the word economical, but, you know, a more substantial order, is it a better break at that time?
I think so, but what I'm going to do, I haven't bought pastels for a while. I'll give you the catalog. These are the last ones I've bought. They're wonderful because they're horse colors. This has been the frustration of my life. They don't make pastels in the right colors for horses. So, hi Dave. So this is one of the things that led me to the whole idea of creating these piles of pigment and making a palette and using a brush to pick up the pigment and mix it just like you would in oil painting. So I'd been oil painting for years, and I kind of missed that nice brush work and missed the fact that you want to get an exact hue, an exact value, and you're stuck with, even if you have 60 or 70 or 80 or 100 sticks, you still aren't going to find just what you want. But you can mix it. Why not? Well, you can only do it on a surface like velour paper or suede mat board. And an art gallery recommended to me once using suede mat board, and it's wonderful. It's
Also available in Ben Franklin.
Yeah. I got it at Ben Franklin.
It's amazing that our little small town has these things.
Yeah, I started just a little practice on suede mat board here. And I have a few samples. I put glassine paper over them because that's the way to protect them until they're framed. And I could pass these around. Two of our daughters have cats, and so for the fun of it, I did the cats, and then thought I had baby chicks somewhere. Yeah, under here. And these, I think, are left over from a workshop years ago. Nothing but chickens.
Right here.
Turn around.
You were there, weren't you? You weren't.
Just let me get in there. It looks cute. Oh, look at those.
What happened?
Fine, I
Good.
love them.
Oh, okay, so I can start these around. And also I did a step-by-step on doing eyes, but it's horse eyes in this case. Dog eyes and cat eyes will be different. So I could start these here.
These weren't done with a brush?
They were, actually, I've done
Why did you
paintings
start them on the right?
Yeah. entirely with the brush.
Oh, you sure?
But you don't need to do them entirely with a brush, you just should do them however it works best for you. And lay in the large areas of pigment. Generally, you take the stick, boy, I can't find a stick that's anywhere near the right color here. And oh, let's get into the horse colors, that would look better for a dog maybe. And get the sides smoothed off. Flattened, I should say. And you can build the colors really nicely on this kind of a surface. You can keep adjusting and adjusting. This is not my demo, so I don't plan to go ahead and finish it.
Could I, is this
This is suede mat board. Yeah. And it's amazingly durable. I mean, you could probably bang it and not shake all the pigment out of
Wow. It grips it better.
It grips it and holds it well. But I'll talk about the finish at the finish, so. The demo that I planned, I'll start. Also, I had done this workup of eyes, because Gorette always asks me about eyes.
Ka-ching.
Yeah, but when the cold is small, how is it a portion of the eyes? Is it like a child, which is kind of human?
I think they are pretty much, the eyes are probably the same size. Let's see, they grow in the body. The legs are not much, the legs are almost adult size. And the heads grow. It's a good question. I generally start out on drawing paper and get the drawing right, because working on this kind of a surface, there's no forgiveness if you make a mistake in the background. What happens if you make a mistake in the background? You need to work a background in. In this case, this is all done by brush, and I just brush the background in. Is that better?
And ordinarily you wouldn't have had the background?
Yeah, because I've done a lot of pieces where you just leave the background, like the dog or the horse there. I did put background in with that one intentionally. But sometimes, like with this one, it's kind of fun to do a background, kind of a painterly.
It's more colorful.
Yeah.
Look.
And like, for instance, with this one, you don't want a background cluttering up. There's a lot. That's a commission from many years ago. But we did have a little blackbird that the kids picked up as a baby bird. They were at Magic Mountain, and there was a baby bird. They couldn't find a nest. They brought it home with them, and it grew up in our house. And they named it Belloc, after the character in Raiders of the Lost Ark. And he was a character. Who would think a McDonald's parking lot type of a bird would have a personality? He really did. But he loved the pastels. And he would climb up on my drawing, and why I had him loose, I don't know. But he'd be up on the drawing board, and he'd pick up the pastels, But he'd drop one, and it would roll right down across the piece of work I was working on and mark up the background.
And you loved them anyways.
Yeah, somehow. However, you mustn't ever have a bird defecate on your work. So
Good
Carter's
advice.
cockatiel never gets out. Not in the art room, anyway. So,
Well, if
on-
elephants can do paintings and monkeys, why shouldn't a bird?
yeah, except he should stick to his own painting. Now, where did I put that picture? I have a photograph. Uh-oh. Oh, no, here it is. For the demo, I thought I'd like to do this racehorse, whose name is Ever Amber.
Down. You look over there. Beautiful.
And I started, I happen to have some very heavy tracing paper. Regular tracing paper wouldn't work too well. Wait. Right side up to me.
I'll turn it.
I'll move it.
I'll turn it. Don't you worry about
Okay.
me.
And I see the shadow of my first drawing in here, which had to be erased. But this is tough enough to take erasing. And so I drew it in with pencil. And then I have a way of transferring to the velour surface by turning it over, and you apply pastel everywhere. And be careful you get pastel everywhere, or you'll be disappointed. And then laying it down on the surface and pressing. All you do is just press it, and I just press it along the edges that time. I don't know if it will, I don't think it'll come off on drawing paper. No, but it came off very lightly on the suede mat board. So that's what I'm starting with. There's not much there, is there? But that's enough, because I wouldn't want to try to draw this from scratch with all of you watching. I've been here until dinner time at least.
Could I ask, if you were going to do that, you would draw with a basic pastel? You don't use a pencil?
I use a pencil on the drawing paper, but to transfer the drawing.
I meant on, if you were not going to use the tracing, if you were
Use
going
the
to draw
pastel.
straight on here, what would you draw with?
Pastel.
Yeah.
And I have done that sometimes, and I'm not worried if it's, how it's gonna come out, and I'm just overcome with it. Inspiration. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't, then it gets a background. So, what I'm going to attempt to do now is to get myself a palette with the colors for this horse. Now, my best shot,
We can see it with you, leaving it right there where you had it.
is this all right, here?
Yep. Oh, I can get that, yeah.
I'll put it back.
That's what you're trying to get, huh?
Yeah. And then, what are we doing? Yeah, okay. Of course, it's a combination of colors, just one flat color here. It's several. So the different areas.
This is just plain old sandpaper.
Yeah, just from the hardware store.
Real fine,
Grit
what
number.
grade, 700,
I don't,
500?
I don't.
Says
Or
on the back.
finest,
On the
just
back.
finest grit.
Yes, but I don't want to turn it over, I'll lose them.
It has a lot of numbers.
230.
Okay.
Anyway, this is, I have one thick one, I mean coarser one here. This is 80. Does the numbers go down? Is it coarser? This is 120. Okay. But whatever works. So,
Do different sticks from different manufacturers affect you personally? Does some cause you to sneeze or have a problem or others wouldn't?
I haven't had a problem. There's a whole thing about, you know, certain pigments are poisonous, and I just haven't had a problem with it.
So you mix the color right on the sandpaper?
I am, but I haven't been taking the time to do what I was planning to do for you, so I'm thinking maybe I should start over. I'm rushing myself, so I'll be happy to answer any questions, but I'll just be working a palette here for a while. So,
Do you prefer the suede mat board rather than paper?
I prefer the mat board. For one thing, also, you don't have to worry about pinning it to a drawing board, and it's just a beautiful surface. But the cost is a huge item. Velour paper is a whole lot less expensive, and you can do really good work on velour paper too, and get pretty much the same effect. So when you're doing an oil painting, you generally make a palette and you have the colors arranged pretty much in the same order as you usually do, so you don't have to think too hard about where to go for what color.
That's good for an artist.
Well, when you get in a hurry,
Mm-hmm.
it helps.
Sure.
Sometimes it helps to work fast. Sometimes. I try to arrange the pastels by color family in these boxes, so it's a little easier to know what I'm going for. These reds, for instance, they don't come off very well. Well, I think Rembrandt's improved over the years. Do you, Greta?
I don't know.
I know, I've had them where they just were so hard, and certain colors.
Well, that's the nice thing about your technique, is you can go down to Ben Franklin and get their cheapest pastel set, you know, Pro Art. And once you
Yes.
ground it up,
I know, you don't have to have
You don't
expensive
have to get
pastels.
that.
Brenda, do you get a percentage of sales?
I
People you
don't.
send in there?
Sure she does.
Dear, when you have it on the palette like that, and say you had to leave, something came up, how long will that, how do you protect it and keep it still, I don't want to use the word pliable, but it's
It
going to
keeps,
stay?
yeah, no problem, but I would just say put glassine paper over it. I guess that glassine paper doesn't attract magnetically, is that what they call it? You know, like the TV screen
I
attracts.
didn't know that. Yeah, because any kind of plastic paper.
Right.
It just, the electrical charge, it just jumps from your surface of your
That's it.
paper
Yeah.
onto the plastic. So
That's the
why you
advantage.
can't.
Where do you get the glassine paper?
Does
I
Ben
ordered
Franklin
it.
have glassine paper?
I don't know.
I don't know, I ordered it from here, this is advertised in the Pastel Journal, And so I ordered this roll of it. I hadn't bought it in years.
Can you
because-
use wax paper?
I don't think it works quite as well, but, yeah, I think it can.
This looks like the same stuff that's in antique photo albums to cover
Maybe it
photos.
is, probably. It's probably very neutral in every way, like archival or whatever. So I have a roll of it now, and it'll probably last me the rest of my life.
Gee, you and I have short life. I'm planning on 100.
Hi, Barbara and Barbara. Thank you for coming. And Norma.
There are seats in the front row.
Yeah, we still have a few spots. Okay, gonna face the music here and try to, I haven't done the palette the way I really should. It should go through the yellows into the oranges and reds and then blues and greens and so forth, but I'm not using all those colors. Hi.
Bonnie, this is
Kathy.
the one we were talking about. I said, I can't
Oh,
remember her
really?
name. She owns
Oh.
horses. She lives on the Smith River.
Yeah,
We have family horses. I have one of her sisters.
yeah.
Good to see you.
You have an intimidating amount of pastels here. Do you ordinarily just use a few of each one and have just accumulated them over the years?
These 4 boxes are, I think it's one landscape set
Oh, I
and
see.
one portrait set, but I've changed them all around. Then this is separate, and I don't really buy individual sticks except whites. I use a lot of, so you have to buy extra whites. So I haven't been doing that many pastels in recent years either. So I had to do some practice to get back to it. And
More demos. That's the answer.
It's like falling off a horse, you get right back on, so she has to fall off her pastel.
So I worked on some extra pieces just to try to get back into doing them because I've spent a lot of my time trying to learn watercolor. That's a lifetime job for me. It's hard. And I love watercolor, but I love pastels too, and I love oils, but I have trouble with the smell, the fumes. I like the smell, but the fumes. So that was just from the cover of a magazine. It's just I love draft horses anyway. But Kathy, you may have seen the magazine. It's a horse supply magazine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't bring it, but anyway. So there's some practice stuff. So, I better get on this. The first thing to do is try to find the closest color I can to the main area, the large areas, and stroke it on just as though I were working on canson paper.
Doesn't that look easy?
This is the easiest part. Except that I'm never satisfied with color. And there comes a point when it's easier to work with a brush than it is with a stick. Well, I'm having as much trouble as I ever have in getting the local color of the horse. So, if I do nothing else today, I hope I finally get it.
now you're mixing a color.
Yeah, doing it little. But when you're working with oils, you do it a lot.
Do you use a particular brush when you're brushing it on?
Yeah, I use my favorite, it's more than 1 inch, isn't it? Watercolor.
Is it
Flat.
table or just acrylic?
These are all synthetic brushes, and the synthetic brushes work beautifully for watercolor and for this. But the part I probably should have mentioned earlier is that, like I went out of my way to find a more difficult way to do things. It's kind of tedious because you can only pick up so much pigment with the end of the brush at one time. And so this slows down the process. So if you can stroke on some of those large areas first and then come back and adjust them with the brush, that's ideal. But the side of a flat brush makes a nice line for you. And then when I get down to the little details, I find the best little wedge-shaped.
Show us, show the camera.
These are very unstable. Grab the wood. For the people.
I don't see my tiniest detail brush here, so it's going to be interesting doing the eye. I even use a little round brush sometimes, but I don't see my smallest detail brush. I do keep a stiff acrylic brush that I keep for watercolor too, for scrubbing out errors. And sometimes if you get something on there and there's too much pigment, you can pull it off with that. You can't erase, but you can lighten up the load.
What did you say, Bonnie, pull it off of what?
Pull pigment,
Off an
excess
error? With what?
pigment off of an area where if you've got too much.
With what?
A bristle brush.
Yeah, this is actually plastic bristle, so it's even stiffer than like a hog bristle.
I have to tell you, Bonnie, the last time I saw you do this, I was so enamored with it. I ran right over to Dennis over at Frames
Yes.
Plus.
Ben Franklin.
And I got at Ben Franklin at Frames Plus, and I bought some of that suede board,
Mm-hmm.
and I went home, and it was so tedious, and I never did anything with it. I just thought it looked so great. I thought, oh, I can do that. Well, wrong.
But you know what, I bet she didn't stop after her first try.
It is.
Thank goodness.
It is tedious, but if you're intent on doing it anyway.
Yeah. Oh, I love the effect. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Also, I stick to really simple subjects. No big scene with the racetrack and the crowd and the jockey and everything. The simpler the better for this method. So, horse, dog, or cat portrait.
So you
That's
really
it.
wouldn't do
Call that
landscapes
simple,
with
huh?
this method, it would be too tedious.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
Where does genius come in drawing a horse?
And covering up all this.
It's just the process, not the subject.
Yeah, it's just that you have to keep going back and reloading the brush. See? Now, I've made a mistake.
Can you airbrush it?
Good question. This is my one
Oh,
eraser.
this is magic.
So I got it too light there. Trouble is, you don't want it to spit.
You don't want it to what?
Spit.
Oh,
You know, like if we go to
You know how
ourselves.
sometimes, yeah.
so what is this thing?
What was that?
It's air.
That's air, and it
Oh,
takes it
just
right
air.
off, just like an eraser.
Well, but there's a little, what do you call it, the propellant is damp. and you don't want to dampen, so you'd have to use it lightly. There's no real easy answer. So I've got to get this color. So you go from the general to the specific. And one reason I like the flat brush is because you can do a line with the side of the brush. I didn't have anything dark enough to show a line, so I need to, just haven't done my homework here, which is this is the tedious part, Greta, grinding all this pigment. Trying to grind enough real dark. Oh, I keep forgetting I have these Geralt pastels.
Your forest colors.
They have lots of dark browns. It doesn't say, it's not advertised as horse colors, but there.
So in Ronnie's workshop tomorrow from 10 to 1, you said that you would have everything but the pastels available.
Well, I have not the suede mat board. I've ordered velour, and I have
Okay,
velour
but we
paper.
can't get that downtown.
Yeah, and
At
tracing
all?
paper.
Yes.
At Ben Franklin.
Good.
Are you getting a commission, Loretta?
No.
She's already been asked that.
But you generally start with the medium values, and then go to your darker and your lighter.
So you can put light over dark.
Yes.
White?
If you had to. If I had to put some, if I had to do that, what I would do is bring out my big guns. Where are they? This white will cover anything on here, but this white,
Wow.
not
Makes
so
a
easy.
So
difference.
the Rembrandt white covers better than all other whites?
No, the
No, this is
schminky,
Oh,
the
Schmincke.
real. Do you have any schminky?
Sennelier is another one
Yeah.
that's a good brand.
They're almost as
Yeah,
soft.
the Rembrandts are advertised as soft, but I think
Mhm.
they're hard.
Well,
You were late, she explained that to
Oh,
us.
I should keep my mouth shut.
it's a matter, it's a, what's the word for it?
All
Degree?
things are relative.
Relative, that's what I was looking for. Relative to Schminke and Sennelier, Rembrandt brands are hard. But New Pot pastels are almost the hardest. That's what I started out with when I was a kid. My mother had a set.
Can you grind down the new pastels?
Sure, that's the amazing thing, yeah, it doesn't matter. So, they're all good and they last practically forever.
So once you grind them down and get your palette, you can just kind of cover it and you have it.
Mm-hmm. Just don't let the wind blow on it.
Right.
Don't sneeze.
Yeah, don't sneeze. Do not sneeze and don't let your bird near it.
Or your cat.
Yeah. Well, that's too big a brush to do the inside of an ear. I always like to use a little bit bigger brush than seems right. But, you know, that's better for oil and watercolor than pastel.
May I ask what the approximate cost of that suede mat board is? That size, just a
This
ballpark?
size.
Half that size is 7.5. 1/2.
1/2 this size?
Uh-huh.
1 I know, I bought a whole sheet, you know, real big sheet, it was like $35.
But Ben Franklin is telling you the inside, you know, he's cutting that, so he's letting you just have his scraps, so that's why it's
Oh, that would be
cheaper.
nice.
That's why it's cheaper.
Well, all I know
$7.50.
is I went down there and the little sample of eyes I passed around, you can look on the back of it, and they're selling that now for $2.50.
Oh,
Therefore, I'm getting real stingy with this stuff. So that's the beauty of the velour paper. You can afford to learn on it. You can make a mistake, and you throw it out, tear it in half if you want to. Which I've done some of that lately. Pastels can be shipped. I've shipped them across the country.
Wow.
This Zorro here was in a national show in Kentucky called Art at the Dog Show. And I've shipped them to the Kentucky Derby Museum and
Is that your dog?
yeah, he was. Yeah.
when you would ship something like that, do you package it? Do you,
Yeah.
or do you take it someplace and have it done?
I don't think there's any place in Del Norte County that would do it.
I see.
But, yeah, if you lived in Sacramento, you could have it
Yeah,
for
our
free.
mailbox ships beautifully.
The
They
mail
wrap it in bubble wrap and.
Are they
put-
next door to Ben?
Yeah, the mail
BF place, huh?
What's the name of the place?
The mail
Is it the
room.
mailbox or the mailroom?
The mail
room.
Anyway,
Mail
they
room.
do a great job.
They do good packing. I hadn't thought of art packing.
Yeah, they do that.
They
Oh.
bubble wrap it.
Oh, I know,
You can
but,
just bring a naked piece of art and they'll just do the whole thing, wrap it, and send it.
You tell them what you've got.
yeah, right.
And insurance.
Yeah, sure.
I was wondering if you had to take a loan out.
And if you get the money, you have to paint it all over again, right?
Have
I
to
think
sell
they
it.
charge about $20 for about a 16 by 20 framed piece with glass.
That's not too bad, especially when you're trying to do all of that at home and you need like a workshop practically and all the supplies on hand.
I have a question.
You just wash your brushes out.
The way you're standing, your paper is down flat on the table and you're kind of bending over it. Is that your standard method? Do you ever sit down or use an easel or?
It's good in the early stages of the painting, especially to stand up. It's good to have it on an easel vertical, but this method doesn't lend itself to much vertical painting because all the pastel kind of, gravity works against you. But
So does your posture though.
yeah, I have a drawing board which is at an angle, and I sit at it. Once it's there, in fact, the fact that it's already drawn in, then I can sit down and work. But if you're trying to draw sitting down, every time I'm going to get
Yeah.
it distorted somehow.
Do you just wash out your brushes with soap and water?
Mm-hmm. And then I make sure they're 100% dry before I ever use it for pastel again.
Yeah.
Because these do for pastel and for watercolor. So I have to have multiple personalities. One for watercolor, one for pastel, one for oil. But I don't do oil much anymore. But there's a workshop coming up that's oil painting.
Mr. Gustafson,
Yeah. Has he done it here before?
he's never done it. We're all just fascinated. He gave us little thing to fill out and
Yeah.
a test to take.
A test to take.
Attitude and I've never seen anything like it.
Oh.
You have the right attitude to get in this class.
Yeah.
2 pages of stuff to read.
Oh, gee. That's too much like going back to school.
Well, school was, no one ever asked the questions he did.
Give us an example. Give us an example. What's a weird one?
What were some of the questions, Doris?
What do you expect to learn? What do you want to learn? What was some of the other ones, Kathy? They worked hard, they were just, he's
No,
trying to
there was
work out
just
what he wants,
3 or
Yeah.
4
what we
questions.
want.
He was just trying to get an idea of what.
I said, I wanna have a good time, I don't care.
Yeah.
Sounds like Doris.
Yeah, I wanna have a good time.
Leave Ginge at home.
We had a great watercolor workshop in Gold Beach with Don Andrews.
Don Andrews, wow.
Yes.
I'll bet you did.
It was wonderful.
Did you have a good time?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
You don't have a southern accent.
Oh, well, I can talk like that. He's from Alabama. Alabama.
Where are you from?
Missouri.
That was a test.
Well, I feel I'm moving too slowly
No, you're going fine. It's only 10 to 1.
and boringly.
Gosh, shame on
Um,
And we're all going to go over to Ben Franklin's afterwards.
I thought I would be further along by now.
Well, I tried that and I couldn't get it to stick to my brush.
Yeah, well,
Well,
It
maybe
only
you weren't
sticks
using
to
the
the
white
end.
sandpaper that she's using too.
well.
That's what I found out, that you have to keep going to the well
Mm-hmm.
many
That's the
times.
tedious part.
It's only good for one stroke and then you go back to the
Yeah,
well.
and you just get wound up and you want to go fast. So every medium has its drawback as well as its advantage.
That's what makes it valuable.
In your workshop, will you give a little sample on old-fashioned pastel work before you get into the painting, or not?
I just want people to do what they want, and I will help
Okay.
them the best I can.
Now that's tomorrow, Bonnie?
Yeah.
Tomorrow? You did the one?
Yes.
And I have, for those that want it, I have a list of the materials.
You can buy them all at
Right on. They'll stay late, open late tonight for your shopping.
Put what aisle number they're located in.
You should have put what aisle number they're
I guess I gave away the sign-up sheet.
Yeah, I've almost been disappointed.
What happened to the sign-up sheet? Oh, the materials, here's the materials list. Here's Carol Salem.
Do any of you who paint in 2 or 3 media find that what you know in one kind of helps augment
Yes.
the other?
Yes. And drawing is the basis for all of it.
if the drawing isn't right, that's your foundation.
Right.
Bonnie's Bonnie's class is tomorrow from 10 to 1, but maybe some of the rest of you would like we're not taking her class, would like the materials list.
What's the cost of the class?
The cost is, I should have put that down, $15 from 10 to 1. I know.
Wow.
I'm sounding.
Because I won't have to do a demo.
You want materials list?
So you should sign up today, Greta?
Yes, we have a sign-up sheet. Should I pass it around?
Why don't you?
Yeah, I've got it. Oh, okay. I would kind of like
I forgot to announce that at the beginning. There's also a class by Frank Gustafson that we have sign-ups for. Sign-up is in the front room on the desk.
Absolutely. No.
Anybody with good coordination want to take over this, you can.
Yeah, all the
So
volunteers
the,
at once.
you just do such a service to this gallery, doing that work.
Bonnie, do you have some velour samples available tomorrow, or should we go directly to Ben Franklin?
BF.
I have velour paper. I ordered several pieces. They're in right here, in these two colors. And they cost me about $6 a piece. And I also have these up here so that you can all come up if you like and try to get the feel of it.
Cool.
Bonnie, would you mind if I commented on the portrait that you made for us?
Oh, only if it's positive.
Barbara Uniker commissioned Bonnie to do a portrait of our little miniature long-haired dachshund. His name is Foxy. And Foxy's normally a clown, and just, you look at her and you laugh because she's so absurd looking. But Bonnie happened to catch her in a wistful looking moment, where Foxy had this sort of faraway look in her eye, and as though she were contemplating the mysteries of the universe. And she did this beautiful big portrait of Foxy that we just absolutely cherish. And long after Foxy's gone, that's going to be hanging on her wall.
Oh, thank you, Barbara. What a test. How much do I owe you for that test?
Same as Ben Franklin gives her.
Yeah. Ben Franklin, why not?
Boy.
It's beautiful.
And
Oh.
if you do your pets in Bonnie's class, it is so wonderful when the pets aren't around anymore. We have that wonderful recuerdo.
Bonnie, when you paint a little animal like that tends to move around a lot, do you do it from the animal or from a photo?
A photo. I'm just have to have the photo. And so if I do a commission portrait, I take at least a roll of film, spread all the pictures out, and pick the ones I think are good possibilities, and then go over it with the owner to see which ones so that we can agree. Because, photos lie. And it's good if you can get one photo that really tells the truth, this is that individual. And then it's not hard to work from the photo, but now I know Goretta's great. She can sit a person down and paint the portrait right there. But at least even if the person isn't sitting still the whole time. But I can't do that. And animals, especially horses with their long heads, the perspective problems are impossible. But
You can threaten people, but horses.
yeah, it's a hopeless thing.
While Bonnie's painting, I would like to tell you a little story that Goretta took Bonnie's class a couple of years ago. And we happened to pasture 2 horses at Goretta's home. She, in her pasture, not her house. But one of the horses is my husband's, and he had him for 30 of 31 years. And he died. And of course it was a very emotional thing, having had the animal that long. And he was going in for back surgery, and it was pretty serious. And Goretta painted a portrait of his horse with some photographs that I had given her, and we kind of hid the finished product, which was outstanding, until he got out of the hospital, and then we had it hanging, and he cried. It was really, it is a gorgeous thing, and it's now upstairs in our home. It's just really, really beautiful. Horses are good subjects, at least from photos.
I used Bonnie's technique that I had just learned that day.
I was hoping to sneak it before.
Yeah, which steps from that book?
Where did that eye come from?
Right.
I've been
Just
waiting
sneaking
to
in
get to
there.
the eye.
We've had a request for some
The,
monologue.
okay.
You never need to rest.
Can you zoom in on that eye?
How about,
No.
it's easier here because it's large enough. Here, it's so small, it's almost like I have to
Ka-ching,
fake
put
it.
that down by the camera. See the TV screen? Put it down. There. Okay, now talk.
Oh. Yeah. So that's a step-by-step on eyes. I took a workshop once with Donald Putman, and he's a terrific painter. You may know him being from New Mexico, did you say? Know of his work, but he's a great Western artist. And he apparently started out as a rodeo clown, and then for many years he taught at Art Center School of Design. He said, cheat to be more realistic. And so what you're trying to do is create an illusion of the eye. Obviously, a lot of times when I'm slavishly trying to copy something, in a way it's necessary, but in another way, if it's an eye, you just have to create the illusion. You've got to get the moisture in there and the roundness and so forth. So I kind of left the white here, although I can use that if I need to. And I see I have dark brown instead of black here where I need black. And I didn't bring a small enough brush so that, well, theoretically, what if I weren't using brushes? Might have to just go back to the caveman days. And I'm so stingy, I just hate sharpening it and wasting all that pigment.
But you don't have to waste what's on it.
No, that's true, I can save it.
Bonnie, I noticed you don't need to support your hand. You must be very steady.
It isn't, I really am not that steady. I don't know what's happening here. I'll probably should prove it in a minute. One thing to do, of course, is turn it however you need to. I can just barely see where the eye is supposed to go.
I notice you don't use surgical gloves.
No, I can't stand it.
Oh,
I've
see,
got them.
I love them because when the phone rings, you just rip that glove off and you can. When your nose itches, you rip the glove off and scratch.
Oh, you're supposed to do that.
That's so fastidious of you. You know, I tend to get pastel all over the telephone.
Yep,
I
me
always
too.
have some on my nose.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. So
Look at that.
you get some, you have to get some of the brown in there too. And you know, a horse's eye pupil is not round. Boy, that's awful.
So it's not round, it's what?
The best thing to do is keep going back to the,
Picture, yeah. the
go
photo.
back to the source. Well, I can barely see. This is where I bring the magnifying glass in at home.
You've
We've got a
that.
magnifying glass.
I have one in my purse.
Oh, that would be helpful.
which I bought it.
I don't want to hear that.
Greta has everything in it.
Or hanging from it.
It's a palette knife. Look at that.
A palette knife. Oh, thank you. Is this from Greta?
No, it's from Ben
From
Franklin.
BF. Her friend Ben.
Boy, that shows a lot that I couldn't see. So the whole structure around the eye is so complicated that, and then as the horse turns his head, you know, around the arc, everything changes. So it really helps to just,
And that's such a tiny picture, oh my gosh, the eye is
yeah,
barely visible.
well, I wasn't thinking too well when I picked it. Looking for it.
She thought she was gonna get out of here before she finished it.
I noticed you've only used the air once. What would one of us expect to use? Will we use up the whole bottle before,
No.
during the one?
I don't
filming?
use it much, I don't recommend using it much, but if I say go out of the lines and, like there's a little bit of a smudge here, this is nowhere near finished though. But let's say it's all done, except I've got the stray hair sticking up here, then I would cover the rest of it and give it full force with the air, and it pretty much will take care of it. But it's not what I really consider a painting tool.
This stuff is called compressed gas duster. Gas duster, I guess.
Ooh.
Oh, well, let's see now. There's gotta be a solution for that. You know, I'm not using these right now. So. Yeah, is that better? Oh, yeah. So I'm trying to get, because if I had a small enough brush, I would use it. But I'm back to the old way now, having to just use this big clumsy stick and hope that the right part of it hits the paper.
You can get those cans of air just about anywhere. They use them for computers and all kinds of things.
Yeah, because of computers, that's true.
The most important part of that can is that little fine straw, which a lot of
don't
times
lose
is
that.
missing. It's supposed to be taped
Yeah.
to the side of the can.
Yeah.
It blows out when you're just,
Let's see. And I keep an old wash rag to clean the brushes on. Usually that's enough.
That is a fine eye, I love it.
Oh, thank you. It's not quite there yet, but I have to get his shadow.
It just looks so liquid and deep.
Oh, good. Maybe I should quit.
Look at the screen,
I
Bonnie.
mean, yeah, look at the screen. The screen looks just beautiful.
Not too bad. That's another reason to get back away from one's work,
Uh-huh.
because
Get
I
right on.
keep a mirror in my art room.
Our pastel is kind of a, more or less a recent medium. I mean, because years ago there's oil and watercolor. But have you always had pastels?
In the 1700s.
Cavemen was using pastels, Egyptians were using pastels.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Just look when those were done.
Could you, while you're working, explain the
Oh,
difference
really?
between these pastels and oil pastels?
I think I might have tried an oil pastel once. I can't say I have any experience with them.
We
They're
might as
probably,
well use oil paint because you have to use terps or paint.
yeah.
So you're
I just don't like the idea of it, and I don't like mixing media, but I know some real good artists combine pastels and watercolor.
Well, the oil pastels are great for illustrative type things, something
Yeah.
bold, you want to just show it, one-time thing. It smears, and all of that, but sometimes that is advantageous too if you're trying to illustrate something.
You have experience with those, Sylvia?
Yeah.
Good, okay, well, you're the one to tell us about it then. because I've just never wanted to get oil into it, and I can't explain it very well.
Well, you can't really do, I don't think you can do a really fine art with it. I don't,
They don't blend. They
no,
don't
that's
blend
it.
the way the soft pastels
That's
do.
it, they don't blend as
Yeah.
well.
There must be a difference in price then.
I don't think that has anything to do with it. I think it's all in the binder.
Yeah.
The oil is the binder.
Mhm.
There's very little binder in this pigment here. It's just compressed.
Yeah, with chalk is the only thing in there besides pigment, and the pigment is the same pigment that's that's always been in watercolor and oil, but just with a little chalk binder, and so that's why it's a little difficult to handle. I didn't say that in the beginning,
In
did I?
order to differentiate oil from an oil pastel, they must use another binder like paraffin or something to give it its solid shape.
Yeah, they must. But I don't know, but this
Because
catalog.
that's the problem, when you try to
It's
put
like
one oil
that.
pastel on another, just like using children's crayons, they just don't want to.
If somebody wants to look in the catalog, it may tell you it's got a lot of good information. And I asked the people to send me some extra catalogs for the workshop, so I do have some to hand out. That is so sissy. I can't believe it.
Sissy.
You have to just do it, not sneak up to it, trying not to ruin it, you know? You have to just
Get down and get dirty.
get down, right. The thing is, I'm not seeing this color, but it's all right, sometimes. I don't have to.
This is a good demo, thank you.
Oh, good,
This
are
is
we
good.
done?
No.
I'm not quite, this isn't done, but you guys need not hang around and watch it.
No. There's nothing to do with it.
There's something, it's like the sensation of twisting in the wind.
So with the human being, you know, the mouth
20
and
minutes,
the
Bonnie.
eyebrows have a lot to do with the expression, but with the horse, his mouth doesn't.
I'm
When
glad you
some
brought
dogs
that up.
smile,
A dog is the only animal that looks good with his tongue hanging out. Wouldn't work with a horse, or a cat, or a human. But,
is the eye the most expressive part of the horse then? Because, you know, if I saw nothing else of this horse, that would be thrilling.
it's the part that goes to my heart. If the eye
Same
isn't
as
right,
cows.
forget it.
You see his
But they
spirit.
do express themselves tremendously with their ears, as do cats and dogs.
That's true.
And their nostrils, it's not like they talk to you with their nostrils, but they give you a lot of information, and
So
their
you have
mouth.
to be a horsey person to know what the nostrils are saying.
Well, if they're this big around, they've been running, you know, and they're like,
Angry.
did I bring the old lady? Yeah. That's an old Arabian mare, almost the last year of her life. And her nostrils wide open and she's snorting because she's been tearing up and down. She's been turned loose with all of her underlings. How can you say it? Cousins, babies, grandbabies, anyway, they're all running
Yeah,
around.
progeny.
And she's always been the kindest, most gentlest horse in the world. But she just tore around and came to the end of the arena and just snorted like that. And I just loved that. I just thought it was so neat. Kind of unusual for her. And this is another old lady. I have a thing about, I'm an old lady now, so it's a subject of interest. The Dowager, which you've seen, that's from an oil painting. And I think one year on the demo, I did it or had it for an example. But she was, sorry, I better learn to look at here. She was a
Oh, you can't see it too well.
broodmare.
Let me back up.
An elderly broodmare. And somebody
It's going to smear your stuff. Don't smear your stuff.
allowed me to come and visit their herd of Arabians, and they had probably 60 horses there. This is the one that got to me. I tried not to show it in the picture, but she was skin and bones. Her casterns were horizontal, and she was,
She's just old.
it's the joint right above the hook. She looked broken down, and she had this stud colt who had the typical attitude of a healthy young male and thought he was hot stuff, and boy did she think he was hot stuff. She was so solicitous of him, so careful that nothing would threaten him. She just loved him and was so defensive of him. And I call this the Dowager, but that was her last baby.
How old was she?
She was only 24 or 26, that's not that old. They shouldn't have been breeding her.
And that was her foal.
Yeah, that was her colt. He was a real colt, but anyway, she got to me. I've forgotten all the rest of them. You had a wonderful mare.
What, Edna?
Yeah. Bay.
Yeah.
Wonderful bay. Trouble with animals is there's always tragedy attached to it somewhere along the line.
They can be very fragile.
Yeah.
It's better looking all the time.
What?
It's getting better looking all the time.
Oh, good.
She must be an artist.
You're encouraging. Have any of you heard of the racehorse lost in the fog?
No.
Nobody?
Just read a
No,
story
was
about
he
him.
net current or?
He was northern. He was owned by San Francisco people, so he raced down there. He was undefeated for I think 10 straight races. His first 10 races. He was just so fast, just blindingly fast. And the owner did not want to wear him out or break him down by sending him to the Kentucky Derby. Bye, Barbara, Barbara.
Thank you.
And they did everything right as far as I know. But so he was a San Francisco horse, so some people around this area I thought might know about him. West Coast doesn't usually produce a lot of stars in racing. He went back east. He beat all the competition, New York and Florida and everywhere. And then he got cancer. Who would have ever thought?
Cancer.
So they had to put him to sleep last week. It's
So
really
he was
sad.
a young horse.
He was, that's right.
Yeah. Oh,
He was a baby, but
that's so
he was starting, I guess he was going to start his 4-year-old year, but it never happened. And he was, of course, beautifully cared for and loved.
Not a very delicate question, but were they able to freeze certain aspects of him for future generations?
I don't know, I haven't heard.
I bet they
It
did.
depends. If it's a thoroughbred, they're not allowed to do that.
That's right, that's right.
Why?
Really?
Because they have to live cover every mare they breed.
They have to.
That's
let-
right.
Live cover the mare. So if they
Wow.
can't breed, if something happens to that back leg, like, before they
Barbara.
have this summer, if his back legs are not substantial enough to support his whole body weight, and keep him light enough so he doesn't
Well,
destroy
what
his
about
leg,
artificial?
they cannot do artificial
insemination?
insemination with thoroughbreds. They're not eligible for registration. Yeah, there's nudity about it
Oh,
too.
that I asked.
Because they have a limited booking too. They're only allowed to sire, I think, 60 foals or 65 foals a year. So they don't overdo a. Let's see, 2 or 3 times with each mare. They have a busy breeding season, but
Oh, my word.
Well, now you know what to hope you come back for. If you-
But then there are those of us like me who happen to get an offspring from that procedure, and they do it with Arabians, and I'm so glad they do, because some stallions are worth flying thousands of miles for. You know? And they can do it, and they're good at it.
But that doesn't hold true for breeding dogs and steers and all these other.
Well, and other types of horses, you know. So.
Cool.
Bonnie's sister has a wonderful stallion that I got a colt down. My favorite mare. And he just turned out so great. And he's got an owner who's just loves him, worship the ground he stomps around. Takes him out and lets him run. And they're just he's so powerful and he's so sweet. He's really just a lovely horse.
The Arab princes in Saudi Arabia were horrified to find out that here they own the original stock, but they are not recognized. They're not, because they couldn't do all this, couldn't account for who was with whom. So all those wild herds in Saudi Arabia now, they're having to pin them up and do it all scientifically now.
Trying to go back and trace their DNA or something. What a task.
Does that explain why the black stallion was allowed to run in a horse race?
No.
In that ridiculous movie?
Oh, you mean that could never happen?
No.
Our favorite story, and it's all a lie?
Such is life.
Usually somebody asks me about fixative and do I use it and all that. And I usually tell the same story about the black stallion. I was fortunate to have a wonderful picture of him when he was being shown off at Santa Anita Park, and I had a friend who took pictures there. And I did a pastel on it. Well, black, of all the colors, black is the one that, for instance, you go like that, black's going to come down.
Oh dear. You got
So I had this whole thing on the suede background type, all is black pigment. And so that's one time I used fixative. Usually what I'd rather do is just take and press like this with my hand.
Really?
And it works. I'm careful to try to press everywhere.
But not use the same spot twice, probably.
Try not to put my black finger on it, you know. And, but that piece I did fixative, and I'm really glad because one of the kids came running in the house, kicked it over flat on its face. And I picked it up, I figured that's the end. It was fine, there wasn't a thing out of place.
Why are you prejudiced against the fixative? I've heard that from so many pastel artists that it's like it's against the law to use it or something.
No.
It dulls the pigment on some surfaces. It may not on this. But
Actually, I haven't even tried it on this, but it certainly cuts your whites right out, any whites. So
It's a liquid, so it pushes it right into the paper.
Yeah.
It absorbs the pigment.
it darkens it, doesn't it? If I ever use fixative, I only use it if I'm gonna do many layers, and I do it in between layers, but the last layer, I never do.
yeah, and I've read about people's methods of doing it, and I thought I should really try that sometime. They use fixative and then they work more in and use
Yeah.
fixative. So,
We've got about 5.
okay, and this is not exactly right, but I think I'm about ready to quit anyway. So, any last minute questions or anything?
Something very important.
Are you coming tomorrow?
Yeah.
10 o'clock. I'm going to pass this sign-up sheet for anyone that wants to sign up tomorrow. Oh, I'll put, what's your name here?
She's,
And here's a, I'll pass the materials list around.
Oh, he's got a pendulous lower lip.
oh, I should have known that. A what? Pendulous?
Lower lip.
Pendulous.
It doesn't look as bad here as it does there.
Well, this is at an angle, don't forget, dear. This is at an angle.
Oh,
Yeah, so
okay.
he's distorting.
Yes.
But it would give me a chance to, I think I really did get things out of the line here, so.
Now look how she does this. Cool.
Let's not say it's cool unless it
Not
works.
too soon. Oh, it did
This
it.
is what you don't want to do.
It spit.
What did you do?
It spit.
Left a
It's
white
bad.
spot.
Grab it right away?
What I'm going to do is
How
leave
about
it
a piece
alone.
of
He's got his tongue hanging, a white tongue hanging out.
You run too hard.
the drool, just the whole drool. It's drool.
It's in the wrong place. Well, yeah, actually, it's almost believable.
It's going away.
Isn't it wonderful?
It's gone away.
You wanted to do that all the time.
It's not the first time this has happened, or else I would have been horrified.
We were horrified for you.
Yeah.
Sweat for you there.
Yes.
It was right here at the very and then all of a sudden it was absorbed.
So is that not wet right there where you're painting?
I'm no.
Oh, I see.
It's,
Just
yeah,
a little
the
She's
problem
not going
area was
there.
just, yeah,
Oh, okay.
Would that have happened on the velour paper?
yeah.
Would it have
Oh,
stayed?
I think it would have been all right, but
Could you have lifted
It's
it
best-
with a rag if you had a rag handy, or a Kleenex even, and picked up
I,
the liquid?
well, on velour, it might be more important too. This, the way it's mounted and everything, it does a beautiful job of just soaking it up, and letting it evaporate. I think I should call it a day now. Give everybody a chance to go.
Now, what's that animal
Not
name?
bad for 1 hour.
Oh,
Not having the right brush.
well, that's a really lame excuse. The horse's name is Ever Amber.
Oh.
And I had a good friend who lived not too far from Santa Anita, and she gave me a lot of nice pictures to work from. And this will have to have maybe another half hour of fixing up when I'm totally concentrating. I just am one of these people who can't do more than one thing.
So this is a thoroughbred?
Yeah.
Just one more announcement. Amy just brought in an announcement for an artist sale. It's a garage sale, basically.
Kathy? Kathy?
And it's on a yellow sheet of paper on the door.
Another one that Dan France.
And if anybody wants to come up and try pastels, I've got paper here.
And I would like to make,
If
I'd
you've
like
never-
to purchase one of the brown ones. I'd like to purchase one of the brown ones.
Oh,
Okay.
the paper.
Yep.
Would you like me to keep it for you for tomorrow?
That would be
Where
good.
is your sign up?
It gets mixed up.
Yeah, great.
It's in there. Okay.
Did you ever find out? Oh, you didn't.
I hope you weren't worried about that.
No, because I really thought that maybe Lisa forgot to give it to you. It was our new book. Oh, yes.
Here you are. And I left it by my chest sign.
Oh, yes.